All right, here we go. When I talk about the Black Death cult and I say, well, this guy's violent. This is a violent individual right here, a code enforcement guy. I go, well, he's a violent individual. People go, well, what do you mean? How's he a violent individual? I mean, he looks nice enough. Doesn't really look like he would hurt you. And he says in this video, which was made by James Freeman, you can read the title here, Asking Code Enforcement to Hurt People for Me. Roswell Code Enforcement, Part 1. He says, well, I won't hurt anybody. I won't hurt anybody for you. Which is not true. He's a violent individual. And James kind of goes through some things here in the video which are very pertinent to what I'm saying. You can watch the whole video if you'd like. It's pretty good. But what I'm saying is there's a code, there's a conglomeration, a configuration, an action of people together forming the Black Death cult that are violent individuals, all of them. And they pretend like each one of them is not violent, but they're very violent individuals. They will violence you. They'll violence you. And whether or not this guy understands, he pretends like he does not understand how he's violent. But he spews out exactly what's going to happen to you in terms of violence. And what this means is a code enforcement guy for the city of Roswell has been asked by James, well, you know, my neighbor's not cutting his lawn. Can you violence him for me? Can you go hurt him? And he goes, oh, no, we can't hurt him. We can't hurt him. Well, what do you do? Well, we go out there and we look at the place. And if he's not up to code, our city code, then what we do is we write him a letter. If he doesn't correct it, then in 10 days, we send it over to municipal court. Now, the guy claims he doesn't know what happens in municipal court. So you can listen to some of it here.
Make sure, so you'll give them a notice, and if they don't get rid of the vehicles, then you can do something violent to them for me?
No, I am not going to do nothing violent.
What would you...
See, I'm not going to do nothing violent. I'm not violent. And like I said, if this guy is so ignorant as to believe that his actions will not lead to violence, then he needs to be educated. But I do believe he knows that his actions will lead to violence.
We filed a criminal complaint in municipal court.
So he files a criminal. So now you haven't cut your grass. In this case, I forgot. He's asking about his neighbor's abandoned car. So if you have an abandoned car in your yard, or a car that they don't like in your yard, he writes you a ticket, a letter that says, hey, I'm with code enforcement. I saw this. You're violating city code. And once again, code is not law. You're violating city code. Do something about it. Now, if you don't do something about it, then what does he do? He files a criminal complaint. So now you are a criminal. And guess what's going to happen after the criminal complaint is filed? Let's say you don't show up. Let's say you go, well, wait a minute. How can I be a criminal for having something in my yard? It's my yard. I can have whatever. That's my private property in my yard. In other words, a car, abandoned or not, in my yard is my property. And this yard is my property. Why can't I have it here? How am I a criminal? I'm not going to this case. I'm not going to show up. Don't care. Or let's say you left to go out of town. You might not show up. Or let's say you got incarcerated. You might not be able to show up. The criminal complaint ends up where? In a courthouse. A judge who is, once again, a violent individual in a black robe. The black robe, as I've explained many times, is because it's from the cult of Saturn. The Saturnalian cult, a cult that worshipped Saturn way, way back, thousands and thousands of years ago, wore the color black. Black and green but black is one of the colors that they wore, and that's still to this day being worn by judges. That's why they wear a black robe. So he refers you as a criminal to the guy wearing the sacred, the sacrificial, the cult worshiping color of black in a robe form. And then guess what happens? If you don't show up, they're going to put a warrant out for your arrest. So now let's say there's a warrant out for your arrest. Roswell police stops you. Says, can I see your ID? They find out you have a warrant. When you have a warrant out for your arrest, this is the best case scenario for cops. They love it. Because when they pull you over for a warrant, they get to search your car. They get to search your person. They get to put you in handcuffs if they need to. If you do you are basically under their control. 100%. When you have a warrant, you have no rights anymore. They can search your car. They can search anything. They can do whatever they want at that point. They're going to take you in if they want to. Now, oftentimes they can ignore a warrant, but it doesn't matter because it puts you at a disadvantage. They have a warrant out for you. So now this guy right here has created a warrant. He's created a warrant if you don't show up for his court. Now, let's say that guy, the cop, pulls you over. And you resist. You go, dude, well, there's a criminal warrant here for you because you didn't show up at court for a criminal. What was a criminal violation? Well, it looks like code enforcement turned you in. Well, okay, bye. I don't care. Get out of the car, sir. You don't get out of the car. What happens? They pull you out of the car. Violent thugs, known as police officers, pull you out of the car. And if you resist, guess what happens? You could die. You could get beaten. You could get seriously hurt. You could get tased and have a heart attack. You could be like Sandra Brown. She ended up dead in jail. She got taken to jail, ended up dead. Look at Freddie Gray. Freddie Gray was on his way to jail, transported there, got killed on the way to jail when they were trying to restrain Eric Gardner. Eric Garner in New York City, when they put him in a restraining hold because he wasn't going to be arrested for selling cigarettes on the street, he got choked to death. You could get choked to death. If you have a warrant out for your arrest, you could get choked to death. And Sandra Brown didn't even have a warrant out for her arrest. Neither did Eric Garner. So now with the warrant out, the cops have 100% ability to just violence you at will. So now they got a warrant out for you. They want to take you in. You resist. Anything could happen, man. Anything could happen. And certainly if you resist, they will violence you. They'll put you in handcuffs, put you in a car, and take you and lock you in a cage. So that's how the Black Death cult operates. And this guy is 100% violent. He's going to sit here and pretend like he's not violent. Oh, no, I'm not violent. I just refer a criminal complaint to the court. And then he claims here, if you listen, he doesn't know what happens next.
Okay.
And then it goes over there, and then the judge takes care of it.
Okay, so how does
The judge takes care of it.
the judge take care of it then? I mean,
You have to go ask them. We don't have nothing to do with municipal court.
what?
See, we don't have nothing to do with municipal court. We have nothing to do with municipal court. So it's not my fault. It's not my problem. But guess what, dude? You're the one who filed the criminal complaint. You're the one who made someone into a criminal for having their private property on their private property. You're the one. So when you see this guy and I go, he's a violent individual. Code enforcement, City of Roswell is a violent individual. And you wonder why, this is why. Right here. I want to thank James Freeman for going into these places and exposing these people for the violent criminals that they are. These guys are the violent criminals, not you for having private property on your private property. You are not a criminal. You are not doing anything criminal when you have your own private property on your private property, in most cases. Sure, there might be some cases where you can own something that can be turned into something criminal, I'm sure, but a car, which is the example here, on your property, you're not a criminal. They are the criminals. This guy right here is a violent individual. He is a violent individual who has no regard for your safety at all, but pretends like he does. And that is a key to the Black Death cult. That's a key. It's never their fault. It's always you. It's always your fault. Just like when they showed up here in this country, I'm in America. When they showed up in this country and Native Americans were here. And then when the Black Death cult moved onto the Native Americans' land and the Native Americans resisted, whose fault was it? The Native Americans. Once again, it's never the Black Death cult's fault. It's always your fault. And you'll hear this with police officers. Police officers will say, you dictated my actions. Like they have no ability to operate on their own. They're operating within the puppetry, the puppet means of the Black Death cult. And this guy right here, Black Death cult member confirmed.
He just outright refuses to remove the cars that I don't like.
That's them. That's not us.
Okay.
See? Hey, if he refuses to remove his car, then what they do, we don't know. But let me tell you what's going to happen. If you refuse, they're going to find you criminally liable, and they're going to put out a warrant for your arrest if you don't show up to answer all the charges and you don't do exactly what they say. So once again, this guy is a violent individual. So when you see this guy and you're helping this guy out at the store and you think, oh, look, he's a violent individual. Black Death cult member confirmed.